Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And my name is Jeff.
And we're going to answer your questions today. But first, Jeff, I have a question for you.
Yeah?
How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
Cool.
Just went to a bachelor party this last weekend.
Ooh.
Yeah. It was pretty fun. It was the bachelor was a guy I play Warhammer with, so but it was everyone drink responsibly.
Yes.
I did not.
Oh, Jeff.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying I didn't drank and drove or anything like that.
You're not currently in the hospital with cirrhosis of the liver or anything.
No. I'm very I'm very safe when it comes to intoxication. Mm-hmm. However, I'm usually I usually try to not get to a point where I know I'm going to be hungover the next day. Yeah. I was very hungover the next day, and it was terrible. And I was playing D&D the next day, and I should have just. And it wasn't until right up until we started playing that my headache started going away. So I was not in a good mood, and I wanted to be because I was playing D&D, and I don't have a chance to do that very often. So
Jeff, has nobody ever told you that drinking and D&D does not mix?
I think hangovers and D&D don't mix.
Okay.
Drinking and D&D, as long as it's in moderation, I think is okay. Because somebody like me, when I have one or two beers in me, I'm a little bit more sociable.
Sure.
So I feel like that can help to a point. Don't drink if you're underage, kids.
Absolutely. I don't know if many of our listeners know this, but I have never been drunk before because I just don't drink.
Right.
It's just not my thing. Somebody brought over some Bud Light, I think, and it's been sitting in our fridge for over a year. Yeah. I'm pretty sure, because what are we going to do with it? Yeah. But anyway, I don't drink, so I can't really relate.
Yeah.
In that regard.
Yeah, it was rough. And then beyond the hangover, I also had at that same party, had a very, very hot sauce.
Oh, right.
It was 6 million on the, what is it, Scoville scale?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
My goodness.
Which was pretty intense. Mm-hmm. I'm actually kind of proud of myself because it was not as bad as what everyone's saying it was going to be.
Sure.
And the other guy that had some, not realizing what it was having a really bad time. I was like, this is really intense.
Yeah.
And I am going to regret it. And I almost don't regret it. But I know I'm going to want... I've been trying to stay away from hot sauce, from spicy food. Mm-hmm. And now that I've had this, I'm like, I kind of want to try more. I want to get back into eating spicy food, even though I know it's going to wreak havoc on my stomach.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was my weekend. It was getting hungover and eating spicy food, which did not do well with my stomach the next day.
Sure. I've been getting better about spicy food. Like my wife has gotten me to eat a lot more like Indian food and stuff like that than I ever would have in the past.
Yeah.
But hot sauce, like the hot sauces, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
I've tried and it just doesn't work.
The hot for the sake of hot ones, yeah. Like the one I tried, I didn't hate the flavor. The flavor is pretty good. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the hot for the sake of hot ones, sometimes they forget to make it taste good.
Yeah. I remember a long time ago we went to Buffalo Wild Wings and tried their Blazing Wings Challenge or whatever. And I mean, this was 15 years ago or something. So I don't, I doubt it is the same as it was then.
Right.
But I just remember not only was the sauce really hot, but it didn't even taste good.
Yeah. A lot of hot sauces overdo it on the liquid smoke flavor or I don't know. They just, there's certain things about some of the really hot ones that just I don't like it just tastes like hot.
Yeah.
And that might be because it's so hot it's kind of burning your taste buds or something.
I guess maybe.
Hey, this is turning into another episode of
about dinner party conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah, well anyway, so in less exciting news, I had a horrible day today.
Oh no.
I won't get into to any real details, but a month or so ago I a couple months ago, I had to go to the emergency room because I woke up in the middle of the night with this intense pain in my side. And then we ended up not being able to catch up on our backlog episode because of it.
That was part of the stretch.
Yeah.
Where we could not record a backlog episode.
Right. Well, the same thing happened today. About an hour after I went to sleep, I woke up with this intense pain, and I knew what it was this time. So I didn't feel the need to go to the emergency room, but it was bad. It kept getting worse. Like it didn't necessarily get worse, but it kept staying really bad, and like the pain kept moving. So I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, but I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't walk around. I was just in so much pain. It was awful. Eventually, after about 4 hours of dealing with this pain, eventually I was able to fall asleep for a couple hours. And then when I woke up, everything was fine. Yeah, I guess. So anyway, and also because of the pain or because of the pain meds that I was taking that they gave me last time this happened, I kept throwing up. Yeah, like 4 separate times. I just. So I'm not going to be eating bacon for a while because yesterday I ate a whole bunch of bacon and I was reminded of that fact several times today.
Oh no!
So eat bacon responsibly, everybody. Yeah. So my day has not been great, but hey, I'm doing better.
Right.
And this issue I'm having is fairly courteous in that it does not ever bother me while I'm at work. It only ever happens on my days off.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, that like there is another view of that where it's like it's interrupting your days off. But
that's true. That's true. But I would rather it happen on a day off than on a day when I have to work. Because at my work, if I'm going to be out sick, I have to be out sick to get credit for it being like a medical leave. I have to be out for a certain number of days at a time. And like, this isn't going to put me out for that many days. Right. So instead I have to just use up my sick days. And I've only got so many of those a year.
Sure.
You know? Well, that's enough of interbody conflict. You want to go ahead and get into the episode?
Sure.
Jeff, I want you to imagine that you wake up one day and you're about to start getting ready for work, but you realize that you are incredibly sick. Your nose is running.
Oh no! This never happens.
It never happens. Exactly. You're throwing up all over the place. It's disgusting. You think you might be hallucinating due to a fever or something. You're not quite sure, but just to play it safe before you head off to work or call out sick, whatever you're going to do today, you grab your sword, you grab your shield and your car keys. But then before going out to the car, you open up that door at the end of the hall that isn't usually there. And behind that door, do you know what you see?
What do I see?
You see the Dragons Hoard. It might be that you're hallucinating because of a fever. It might be because you did let that dragon stay with you while his house was being renovated last month. Yeah. He might have left it there.
That's true.
He might have put a spell over that wall so that you wouldn't be able to, nobody would steal his stuff. I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with this. We're going to get into this item here. So this item was submitted by Jack, our patron Jack, and personal friend Jack.
Sure, yeah.
This item was submitted via email, and it is called the Bottle of Whispers.
What is it saying?
The Bottle of Whispers.
Oh, okay.
And apparently it is from a book. It's from a book titled Nerzagal's Dungeon Master Toolkit 2, which is up for purchase on the DMs Guild. So I'll be putting a link to that in the show notes. There's a lot of really good stuff on the DMs Guild.
Yeah, I found a few things on there that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I was talking with our other patron Noah Wizard the other day.
Yeah,
and he was sending me links to, like, he bought a couple books on DMs Guild, and he was like, hey, look at this cool thing that's in this book. And like, they were all really, really cool stuff.
Yeah, a lot of people are making some really good content on there. Like,
in fact, the book he was telling me stuff about was made by the guys from D&D Character Lab.
Yeah.
Why did I not even mention? Last week, we had D&D Character Lab, Garen and Dan, on our podcast. They were wonderful guests.
Yes, absolutely.
It was awesome. It was a wonderful episode. I don't know why I didn't start out the episode with that. I'm sorry, Dan and Garen, if you're listening to this.
You can't front load the episode.
I guess. But then we're hiding it in the Dragons Hoard. Maybe there's people that listen and they don't want to listen to the Dragons Hoard, so they skip ahead.
Who skips the Dragons Hoard?
I don't know.
If you skip the Dragon Hoard, email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com.
Yes. So anyway, Bottle of Whispers is what we're talking about today. So this item, it is an uncommon wondrous item. When the cork of this bottle is removed, it will capture whispers of any conversation within 30 feet.
Oh.
As it captures these conversations, colorful smoke begins to swirl through the bottle. The colors are vibrant and diverse, each unique to an individual conversation. So if there's a couple different conversations in there, one might be red, one might be green.
Cool.
Once 5 minutes of conversation have been captured, the bottle is completely filled and can hold no more whispers until its contents are emptied. When the bottle contains smoke, it can be tipped on its side to pour out conversations one at a time. Each of these conversations are written on a small piece of parchment, wrapped up and bound by a colorful string that matches the color of smoke that was poured out of the bottle. There is no indication of who spoke the words written on the page, and the participants are simply listed as Speaker 1, Speaker 2, etc. Once the contents of the bottle have been poured out, it requires 24 hours to recharge before it can absorb additional conversations.
That's really cool.
That is a really cool item. I like how you can capture multiple conversations.
Yeah.
I like how it transcribes them onto a little slip of paper.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
It's all color-coded, and that's really cool. Like, yeah, you just keep that in the middle of a tavern.
Yeah? Oh, my goodness.
Like, keep that in the middle of a tavern.
Oh,
It
my
collects
goodness.
It collects a lot of things, and, like, you know.
You'd have, like, a rainbow of conversations in there.
Right, and so, like, you just have, like, all these conversations, and, like, they're not attributed to anybody, so, like, it might not, you know, you won't be able to, like, I don't know, implicate anybody in, like, a crime or something like that, I guess.
Sure.
Or, like,
this would probably not be admissible in court. Let's just put that right out there.
But it could create some intrigue. Like,
Sure.
maybe somebody is discussing, like, a crime or something, and then you're like, wait, who was there that night? Like, a murder, it could be, like, a murder mystery party thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I just had a great idea.
Yeah.
What if you know that, like, somebody has been, I don't know, threatening the princess or something like that. And so you put this thing in the room that the princess is going to be, and then you come back later and there's smoke in there, so a conversation happened. And then you see the person threatening and so on and so on. But then you find out later it was the princess that was threatening the other person.
Oh.
And because it doesn't tell you who it is, it just says, you know, Speaker 1, Speaker 2. Although I would say Speaker 1 and 2, that kind of makes it sound like Speaker 1 is more important than Speaker 2. How about Speaker 1 and Speaker A? So anyway, but yeah, there could be, I could see in something like a book or something, there being a little bit of a confusion or like a misdirect, because you think that the person who's speaking, you think Speaker 1 is this person.
Yeah.
But it turns out that they're actually Speaker 2, and Speaker
Sure.
1 is this other person you didn't suspect.
Another way to do it is, instead of saying Speaker 1, Speaker 2, it's just, they're just slightly different colors or something like that. Like,
Sure.
One is a, like, if it's a red color smoke
That would be
thing,
Speaker 1 because that is the best color, obviously.
if it was a red one, it would be like Speaker 1 is like a dark red, and Speaker A is a
Sure,
like a lighter
sure.
red or something like that. Just so there's a difference in the writing, so you know it's, you know, two different people, but it's not, you know.
Here's a question.
Uh-huh.
What if Demon Prince Demogorgon was in a room having a conversation with himself? Because he does have two heads.
I think the bottle would just explode.
Oh, yeah, probably. You're probably right. And this isn't really the time or place for this, but I want to say, if you are saying the Demogorgon, that's not D&D, that is Stranger Things. Demogorgon in D&D is a specific being.
Oh, right.
It is not the Demogorgon, just like it's not the Jeff or the Gandalf. You know what I mean?
The Gandalf.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I think this is a really cool item. I had a character back when I was playing as my cleric Sathorn back in the Chronic S block days.
Uh-huh.
He was given a cloak or a robe or something that it was a really cool robe. But one of the things that it could do was, if I can see something, I can hear it.
Oh.
And so, like, I don't think it ever came up in game, like how that functioned. But in theory, I could look through a hole in a wall and see a situation, like at the far end of a room, and be able to hear the conversation as if I was right there.
Nice.
And so anyway, this kind of makes me think of that. It's just a neat thing that lets you listen in on a conversation that you wouldn't be able to otherwise.
So I have a character that I'm playing, She's like a little old lady caster.
Okay.
I think I might have mentioned her at some point.
Is she the diviner?
Yeah. Although this build I have her in, she's going to be mostly bard.
Okay.
Just like 2 levels of diviner of wizard to get the divination thing.
Sure.
And then bard. So like she's very heavy in support.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's going to be a lot of like helping the rest of the party make their rolls and stuff like that. So I feel like if I can help control the way the dice lands, in a way, it'll make everything run a little bit smoother. But I was looking at like what cantrips that I want to give her, and like I've never given any serious thought to message.
Okay.
But I think message would be really cool, mixed with having a familiar that I can like. Basically, if I can put a familiar on, like if somebody's going to be one of the party members is going to be talking to somebody without my character being there, I can have my character be there by putting the familiar on like their shoulder or something.
Sure.
Being able to see and hear through them, and then using the message spell can like whisper what they should be saying or something like that. Because as far as I know, my character has the highest charisma and stuff like that. The other campaign I'm in, I'm more of like a tank fighty kind of character, and so I thought for this other one I should be more of a support and the talking one, the one who does the talking.
Sure.
Even though she's gonna get the party in more trouble than out of trouble. Anyway. But yeah, like so this sort of thing where like being able to spy on people or like different ways of communication and stuff is very neat.
Yeah, it's an item that really highlights how powerful information is.
Yeah,
and they say like now and knowing's half the battle or whatever. I don't know if that is meant in this context, but I mean that's a big thing. Mm-hmm. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And having a way to communicate with others and or gain information from others at a distance is a very, very powerful thing.
Yeah.
It's really going to depend on what type of campaign you're playing in.
Yeah.
How powerful this is, but it's really cool. I would love to put that in a campaign and see what the players do with it.
Yeah, it is depending on the campaign and like how the group plays normally, but like divination in some groups is seen as the weakest of the magical schools.
Yeah, in 3rd edition you only had to give up 1 school instead of 2 schools.
Right, to specialize.
To be a diviner.
Right, yeah, that's right. And so, but I mean like again depending on the campaign, but it can be the most powerful because if you can know what's going on, like it's almost like cheating.
a little bit
It's almost like cheating, but like most of the divination spells come with some sort of caveat, like they like it's more cryptic or it's like single word answers.
Sure
Or in this bottle's case, like you don't know who it is, like you don't know the names. It could be anybody who was talking in that room.
Yeah.
So there's still some mystery and intrigue to it, but it is a very neat. I like the flavor of it too, the smoke swirling in the bottle.
Yeah, I really like that.
Cool. I like this one.
Yeah, it's a really cool one. So once again, that was the Bottle of Whispers, and it was from Nerzagal's Dungeon Master Toolkit 2. So I'll put a link to that product in the show notes. Well, I think that'll do it for the Dragons Hoard today. If anybody wanted to submit Dragons Hoard items to us, or questions for us to discuss, or stories for the funeral pyre, how would they do so?
They could send us an email at InterPartyConflict@gmail.com.
Yes. Now, before we go any further, we have a giveaway today. Today, we're going to be giving away a copy of Chapel on the Cliffs from Goblinstone. And, Jeff, who is our winner today?
Our winner is Scott.
Winner. Gobble, gobble, gobble. Yes, Scott. At the moment, we've only gotten 1 Scott. So if there is a second Scott out there and you think it's us, contact us. Or if you think it's you, contact us. Yeah, because he's got an email and I want to say what his email address is.
Sure.
But congratulations, Scott. I hope you enjoy this product. If you haven't gotten it within 24 hours or so, let us know. Also check your spam folder. They always seem to get caught by that. And yeah, if anybody wanted to enter this drawing, Jeff, how would they do so?
They could send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com with Chapel on the Cliffs in the subject line.
Yes, it is that easy. Now, I want to take a moment and plug our Patreon. We've got a good number of patrons on there. I just added a couple more goals, not rewards, but goals. Just things for like what's going to happen when we get to certain dollar amounts total. And I've got stuff on there. I would like to eventually get some some way for people to purchase merchandise with our logo on it.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I've had people mention to me that like, oh, I thought I was going to get a shirt because the logos for each of the tiers are shirts. And well, I mean, none of the rewards said there was a shirt.
Right.
But I went and I added into the blue tier description, there is no shirt included yet.
Right. Yeah.
So so I would like for there to be, a way to get, for people to buy shirts or whatever with our logo on it. If they wanted like a mug with our logo on it or something, that would be really cool. I even have a higher goal that if we get to that point, I'll find a way to get patrons a free shirt.
Sure.
And there might be a requirement like you have to be a patron for a certain amount of time first.
Yeah.
But if our Patreon gets to a good enough point, sure, I'll find a way to get everybody a free shirt.
Yeah, that's cool.
I guess it's not technically free because you are paying money, but a complimentary shirt is what I should have said.
That's that.
So if anybody wants to check out our Patreon, it's patreon.com/InterPartyConflict. We've got some good tiers on there. You get the lowest tier, you get outtakes from us. You get a fantasy fiction that I write every month. You can read that. We've got, if you're the $5 tier, you get bonus episodes. We're actually just about to record our bonus episode for this month. I also do like every couple of weeks, I do like a little update to our patrons, letting everybody know like how editing the show is going, what sort of media I've been consuming over the past couple of weeks. And then if you're the top tier, not only do you get to take part in our monthly Roll20 game, which I'm trying to schedule that at the moment so we can get that set up.
Yeah.
But also you get, you can give me your character and I will write my monthly fantasy fiction about your character.
Yeah.
So just a week or two ago, I got out one of those for Justin from Crit Academy. He's one of our patrons.
Cool.
And I wrote a story about his character, a goblin named Zazu. I think it was a very fun story. He really liked it.
Cool.
And I think it's one of the better things. I think every time I come out with one of these, I think to myself, this is one of the best things I've written. And I think that's pretty cool. I think...
I mean, it's definitely a good exercise for, right, because like people come up with the, kind of give you the subject and you just run with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's definitely a good way to stretch your muscles.
Sure. And also, like, I hadn't really done any writing in a long time, and so this is a way to force myself to get back into writing. And
our mutual friend Noah Wizard has been giving you very good reviews.
He's actually been helping me write a lot of these. Like I'll go and if I have a basic idea for something, I'll say, hey, how does this sound for a basic idea? And he'll be like, oh, that's cool. Or, oh, maybe it should have this sort of a theme. And then I'll write it, send it to him, and he'll give me these like line by line critiques like, oh, well, the way you worded this sentence it would have more of an impact if you worded it this way. And that's really cool. And then there are other times, especially with Justin's goblin character, the end of the story, I had it end kind of ambiguously. And whenever I'm writing something, it all makes sense to me. I know what I'm writing. So I need a second pair of eyes to look at it and say, Gabe, no offense, but this doesn't make any sense. And although I do still feel like what I originally wrote wasn't bad, he gave me a much better way to do it. And then I took it, rewrote the ending, and then he loved it. So cool. I mean, not that he wasn't the patron that had commissioned that, but he's the person that's been giving me critiques on stuff to help me write something better. And he thought that I wrote something pretty good. Yeah. So he has been a huge help in my writing. Yeah, so our Patreon, I think it's really good. We got some good tiers on there. You can get some good rewards. Just check it out. And even $1 a month will get you some cool stuff and help out the show.
Yeah, and if you can't give us anything, we appreciate you listening.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And word of mouth, tell a friend about us, if you haven't already.
Yeah, we've gotten a bunch of new listeners recently because they heard about us on Crit Academy.
Awesome.
So thanks, everybody. And one more thing before we get into questions. Check out our friend podcast's D&D Character Lab. I know I mentioned they were on our episode last week, which was a great episode. Also, Crit Academy. Justin from Crit Academy has been on our show a couple times. Also, him and his co-hosts, Ian and Brandon. I've been on their show a couple times as well. So both those are two great podcasts. You guys should definitely go and check them out.
Yeah, a lot of good content from those guys.
Yeah. And I keep forgetting stuff to mention at the beginning of the episode, but my brother's Kickstarter, by the time this episode has gone out, has ended. But as we record this, it still has a few hours left. It's got like 4 hours left, and it is 670% of its goal.
Yeah, nice.
So it is way, way, way past its goal. Some of our listeners have sent me a message saying, hey, I backed this Kickstarter thanks to you guys mentioning on the show.
Yeah.
So I want to thank everybody out there. I'm not getting anything from this, but it's my brother. I love to support my brother's work,
absolutely.
and I think it's a great game.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. It's a very interesting concept, and we've talked about it before, but it was like as a D&D player, it was hard to get into, but once I figured it out, like once I understood it, then I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Like everyone's the narrator, to a point. So like, there's a lot of possibilities in there, and it was a very fun concept. I like it a lot.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for backing that. Anybody who did, and if you didn't, I'm sure you'll be able to buy a copy of this in the future if you want to.
Right.
It's called The Mountain Witch. It's a samurai blood opera, according to what it's classified as on Kickstarter. Anyway, it's a great game, so keep an eye out for that if you didn't catch it on the Kickstarter. Enough of that. We're well into our recording time today. You want to get in some questions, Jeff?
Sure, let's get going.
Cool.
Okay, our first question comes from You're Fired Then. Sorry, no, you're not fired, Gabe.
Oh, thank you. Oh my goodness.
That'd be terrible. We wouldn't have a podcast. Gabe does all the work. This was on Reddit, and they ask, am I the only one who hates hearing people's D&D stories?
Now, first things first, I want to say I am a person who has we've made a podcast that is very largely D&D stories, not entirely, but it is a large portion of the runtime of our show.
Yeah, and our end segment is basically a D&D story.
Pretty much, yeah. That being said, and I don't mean to say anything is wrong with people's D&D stories, but I kind of see where he's coming from. Now, I think that there's a way to tell a D&D story and a way to not tell a D&D story, but like in general, if somebody walks up to you and they're like, "Hey, let me tell you about this dream I had," what's your reaction?
Yeah,
Your outward reaction is probably like, "Oh, yeah, cool. Neat. Tell me about this dream," and then your inward reaction is like, "Where is the nearest exit?"
Right. Well, yeah, when somebody is trying to describe you a dream they had, now I know people who, when they are describing a dream, they're just making stuff up.
I mean,
like they're just trying to tell a story, and they're either trying to say have some weird backwards way of telling somebody something. Like it's like,
oh, I had a dream where you gave me $20. I'm holding out my hand now, doing the universal give me money gesture.
In the simplest way, yeah.
It was such a cool dream, Jeff. It would be awesome if that came true.
Yeah, it's like,
give me.
I had a dream that we all did this thing I want to do, and it was a good time. Like that, basically that.
Yeah.
Or it's somebody trying to describe a dream, and it's their actual dream, and it makes no sense because it's a dream.
Because it is just nonsense that your brain throws out because it's trying to, I don't know, clear out the RAM or whatever.
Right, yeah. So you're just like, okay, all right. Or somebody's trying to use a dream to describe, I don't know, they're like trying to use a dream to like make an argument.
Okay.
And it's like, but it was a dream.
Yeah.
Like a dream is not admissible in court. Like,
sure.
Like it's just a dream.
Yeah. So the reason I ask about dreams is because D&D stories are really very much like dreams in that if you were not there to experience them, 95% of the impact is lost.
Right.
You weren't there. You weren't a part. You didn't feel the emotions while they were pumping. You're just hearing a story about something that happened, but to you there are no stakes. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like, when something funny happens and you're trying to describe when you try to describe a joke, it kind of ruins the joke. So when you're trying to describe what was cool about this story, this situation, it kind of ruins it.
Sure.
Because you're not in the same, like, it's not from the same perspective. You're not in the, you're not in the same setting. You're not with the same people, like it's not like the story's not going to be told the same way.
Yeah. And I would have to say, because there's different types of D&D stories that people share. Mm-hmm. I think some of them are better. Some of them are less better. The type of D&D story that I generally find very hard to, the type of story that I think has the least value is the type of story where the whole point is that I rolled really well.
Sure.
Because if someone is like, hey man, I just climbed a mountain yesterday. I trained for it for a long time. I had to use all my best judgment. I climbed this mountain. It was awesome. Mm-hmm. That's cool. I can tell that they made that happen. It was not possible at one point. They made it possible. But if they said, yeah, man, I bought a lottery ticket, scratched it off, won $1,000. Am I supposed to say congratulations? Because what they did isn't based on any skill that they had.
Right.
They took a chance, and statistically, some of those chances are going to pay off. Some of them aren't. You're not going to tell me about the chances that didn't pay off.
Right.
So all you're telling me is about, oh yeah, I got lucky.
Right.
And with if the story essentially boils down to, hey, this cool thing happened because I got a natural 20. Okay. I can see that was exciting to you while it was happening.
Yeah, and that is exciting.
That is exciting.
When you're playing the game.
We actually, I'll give a little bit of a spoiler here. Somebody submitted a question to us that's, what's your most interesting natural 20? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great question, but I don't have a good answer to it.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like when a natural 20 happens, it's really fun. That's really cool. You're gonna be excited about something like that. But if you tell that to me in any sort of like a bragging way, I'm not gonna be interested.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I understand some of the stories that I tell do essentially amount to I rolled really high and the DM rolled really low. There is a story that I have shared on several occasions where Ichi got eaten by a shark and then he managed to pull himself out. Now, although yes, that was largely because I rolled really high and the DM rolled really low. But I don't tell that story because, hey man, listen to this time that I rolled really high. It's that I have this character that like, the whole point of the character was that he kept getting all of these badass things attributed to him. And then one of the things that he actually did do, that's one of those things that like if a person in real life did that, you would think that it was complete and total bullcrap.
Right.
But it just added to the legend that was this character.
Sure, yeah.
Most of which was fictional.
Yeah.
Within the game world. So like, I don't just tell it because, oh man, he climbed his way out because I rolled really high. It's like, yeah, my character got eaten by a shark and pulled his way out.
Right. So like somebody who's listened to all the stories of Ichi and then they hear that one, they're like, okay, that's just going too far. But that's the one that actually happened.
Sure. And if someone listened to it and they were like, oh, you only did that because you rolled really high. Okay. Yeah. Fair criticism. I wouldn't blame anybody for not being interested in that particular story. I also think that when you're sharing D&D stories, shorter is almost always better. Uh-huh. There's all sorts of subreddits where like on r/D&D or r/RPG, or I'm pretty sure there's other subreddits that are like, just tell me your character stories.
Yeah.
Where someone's like, oh man, what's your best character story? Or even, let me take this a bit more closer to home. I've posted on Reddit, on Facebook, and so on about what are some memorable character deaths, trying to get some funeral pyre stories.
Right, yeah.
And I always try to sum it up in like just a couple sentences, because anytime I see someone's story about their character death where it's like 4 paragraphs, it's real hard for me to not just scroll straight past that and never look back.
Right.
You know what I mean? There have been some we've shared on the show that were kind of long, but most of the time, if it is longer than 3 or if it's longer than 1 paragraph, I'm just instinctively going to pass it up unless we like are scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Right. And like, and it's obviously no offense to the writer in any way. We're just, it's supposed to, fit like a, it's a time slot basically. Like, there's only so much we can fit at the end there. And
really, I mean, it's, especially as a writer, it's an issue of editing. If you can tell a story in 2 sentences, don't tell that story in 4 sentences.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you like, you're not going to get everybody's attention for as long as you want. So try to narrow down to the vital details. And by vital details, like there might be some details that aren't vital to the story, but they are vital to the telling of the story. So if you're telling a story, there might be just one little superfluous bit of data that you want to give just because it just gives the story just a little bit more pop. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And we're not saying don't send us your...
Yeah, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. If you want to send me D&D stories, send me D&D stories, even if they're really long.
Yeah.
I probably will read them eventually. It's just like, I'm gonna be fighting a little bit of an urge to pass it up if I have other things that I have to get to.
Yeah. So send us your character death stories at InterPartyConflict@gmail.com.
Yes. And I think that a lot of this, I feel like a lot of this does and doesn't apply to actual play podcasts because actual play podcasts are very, very popular.
Yeah.
And I've gone on the record as not being a huge fan of them, not because I think that they are bad, just because there are so many of them. There's so many of them, and it's hard for them to stand out.
Sure.
So now on one hand, I feel like an actual play podcast is better than just hearing somebody's story because you are experiencing it as it's happening.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. You're kind of part of the fun.
Sure. But even still, you're only about halfway to that goal.
Yeah.
Because it's not your character. You didn't create the backstory. You aren't the one that is getting the visceral feeling of rolling the dice. So when a good roll happens, it's not happening to you. You are living vicariously through the people playing the game. That being said, it is a bit better than just hearing a story.
Yeah.
So I don't think that actual play podcasts are bad are inherently less valuable for that reason. However, another thing about D&D stories, I feel like I've said this before, but I'll say it again, is that I guarantee you your D&D game is not as exciting to other people as it was to you. Mm-hmm. That's not a bad thing. It's just that because you were there and because you had a part in making it, it's naturally going to have it's going to have a place in your heart. You're gonna have fond memories of it.
Yeah. None of this makes your stories like less fun to you.
Absolutely.
Or rather it shouldn't.
Yeah.
Whenever you criticize something somebody likes, it's always it's gonna feel like an attack.
Sure.
Like it's gonna feel like a direct attack, and that there's actually some credence to that. Actually, like chemically, your brain feels like it's being attacked.
Yeah.
Like you are being assaulted in some way, and that's why people get so defensive in these sort of things.
Yeah.
But none of this, what we're saying is none of this should, make your story feel, less fun to you, less exciting to you.
Sure.
Because you were a part of it. It was fun. If it felt fun, it was.
Yeah.
But
that's the important thing.
Yeah. Because there are plenty of stories I could tell, but I know like halfway through them I'll be like, this isn't really an interesting story.
Sure. I've been in that position before.
Yeah, where you just start talking and then like a minute in you're like, oh wait, this is kind of boring from the outside.
Yeah. Or you realize like this is going to take so much more explanation than I want to get the impact that I want it to have, and it's not going to be worth it.
Yeah.
I was just thinking another type of D&D story that I very much dislike hearing. And again, I understand why people share these types of stories, but like with my own D&D sensibilities, this is like the worst type of story in my opinion, is stories where it always starts with, oh man, I ended a 10th level encounter with a cantrip. Okay. Before you even get into that story, I can tell you right now, you probably didn't read the description of the cantrip completely. You probably used it in some way it was not intended to use. You probably broke a rule that the cantrip was not intended to break, and that's how you ended a 10th level encounter with a cantrip.
Yeah.
There will always be threads on r/RPG and r/D&D or whatever that's like, oh, what's your most creative use of a spell? I always click on them just out of a morbid sense of curiosity, but I know what I'm going to see when I get in there. It's like, oh, yeah, DM let me cast Destroy Water, and it killed a guy because the guy is a container and it destroyed all the water, and he's 70% water, so it turned him into dust.
Right.
Okay. There are many reasons why it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
The first being, it's a cantrip. If it was meant to deal damage, it would say what happens when you cast it on a person. Right.
And like a lot of those kind of spells usually say cannot be cast on a creature or something like that.
Yeah. But like, okay, every single spell in every edition of D&D, somebody has thought, what if I use this on a person? How much damage does it do? If damage isn't listed, it doesn't work on a person.
Right.
Because everyone is going to want to use mending on a person to try to deal... Somehow, they're going to want to try to use mending or open close on a person to deal damage. If it dealt damage, it would say that in the spell description.
Ooh.
So
mending sidebar. Sorry,
okay.
Don't mean to interrupt.
Sure.
I was looking into mending and I'm trying to figure out like what are the limitations on it? Like what one way that I use this. So like speaking of using a cantrip
Sure.
to do something that you probably shouldn't have been able to do. When we were playing with Justin,
Yeah.
I used mending to basically duplicate a thing.
You did, didn't you?
I don't think that's possible with the mending. I like the mending, the wording in mending.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. Yeah.
The wording in mending doesn't. I don't think the wording is great.
Yeah.
For the art, for like some of the rulings I've seen online, or like at least the suggestions of rulings. I don't know what the official one is, but like I think the idea is like if something is broken in half, you can fix it as long as it's like under a foot.
Like you can put it back together.
You can put it back together. It's not that it will fix a broken thing.
It doesn't like create a new half.
Right. So like, yeah, basically if it was like it's with anything within a foot. So if it's smaller than a foot in any dimension, basically what I did was I broke a small thing in half, casted mending on one of the halves, and then it became a hole, and then casted mending on the other half, and that became a hole.
Sure,
so
yeah, I do remember that. That was when we were playing Claws of Madness.
Right, yes. So like, you know, reading the rule, it doesn't really necessarily like say anything against that, but it says like a tear or a crack, or that sort of thing, or like one of its examples is a key that is broken, or like a key that's in two halves. You can put it back together or something like that. So like I could say like, oh, I solved this puzzle, but like that was because it was missing a piece. Yeah. Because I broke one of the pieces in half and then just mended each of them and made two more pieces, and I was able to solve that puzzle.
Sure.
That, like we weren't spelled. Otherwise we would have had and fought this like really hard boss to get the other part of the puzzle. But I solved it with a cantrip. You know. Yeah. Yeah. I mean that didn't actually happen in this case, but that's if you're defeating a 10th level encounter with a cantrip, it's probably because you misread it. Or the DM was just thought it was a funny idea and thought like, okay, let's go with it. Fine.
Well, yeah. So like, let me explain why these types of stories bother me.
Sure.
I mean, number one, I am a bit of a stickler for the rules. I've said even I think in our second episode that I'm a bit of a rules lawyer. Yeah. I try to never let it get in the way of having a fun game. If I don't ever use it to tell the DM what to do. But if someone is obviously not following the rules, if it's on purpose, that's fine. But if it's out of negligence, that bothers me. Yeah. Because you're playing this game that has a ton of rules. Yeah. Because you like the rules. Otherwise, you'd be playing a different game. So you should try to stick to the rules.
Yeah, I'm a little less nice about it, but
sure. But so it bothers me because it shows a negligent following of the rules. But also it's because like, okay, let's say a person says, oh yeah, the short description of Mage Hand says it gives you 5-pound telekinesis. So the DM let me use my 5-pound telekinesis to pop this guy's eyeball because 5 pounds of force could pop an eyeball. My response to that is that you're not using a cantrip in that case. You're using an incredibly powerful spell that could murder someone instantly with no save.
Right.
You wouldn't brag about saying, yeah, man, I killed this guy with power word kill. Aren't I awesome? No, because that's what the spell does.
It's like, your character is awesome for getting to that level to be able to cast that spell. Right. I'm sure there's plenty of good stories that brought you to that point. Right. But, the act of just casting a spell and killing a guy that is meant to kill a guy.
But what they're not saying, hey, I cleverly used a 0-level spell to do this thing. They're saying the DM made this 0-level spell ridiculously powerful and I used it to kill somebody because what else am I going to do with a ridiculously powerful spell? Yeah. You can't brag about something that is horribly broken. Sure. Because it's horribly broken. Yeah. It's going to horribly break things. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's why those types of stories just I have very, very little patience for them because like that's not what the spell does. That makes the spell significantly more powerful. Yeah. And that's why you can't do that with that spell.
Right. And if you could, according to the rules, everyone would use it.
Pretty much. Like, I mean, if the DM actively made it a house rule that this is how the spell works, okay, I disagree, but whatever. It's your game. Go for it. But I like when the world itself is consistent, is internally consistent. So if a 0-level spell was able to pop an eyeball with no save or attack roll or anything, why is anybody casting anything else? Why does anybody have eyes anymore? I mean, come on.
An eye for an eye for an eye for an eye. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So sorry, I know I'm yelling at the cloud and everything, and this old man over here, but like those types of stories, I really have very, very little interest in. Just because like they, in my mind, they are not at all heroic. They're not at all exciting. It's just like, well, I mean, did you read the description? Because that's not what it does. So anyway, those types of stories I don't like. If it's if the story is about, we were in this weird situation, here's some cool decisions we made, and here's the effects of those decisions, I can get behind that. I like those types of stories. If it is a story about players, having to make a difficult decision, or I don't know, coming up with something the DM didn't think of, and then derailing a campaign because the players had a cool idea, I'll get behind those. I've shared some stories like that of my own. Those types of stories I think are a bit more universally accepted. But if it's a story that has to do with, if it all comes down to I rolled really high, that's not as great of a story. If it's a story that's I broke the rules and profited from it, those ones are even worse. So again, I don't mean to tell anybody that your stories aren't fun for you. I don't mean to say they shouldn't be fun for you.
Yeah.
If you enjoy listening to this, if you enjoy those things that happen, if you enjoy telling them to people, awesome. Yeah. Don't let me stop you. Go on, tell everybody, have a great time doing it. Just, I can understand if someone said that they don't enjoy hearing people's D&D stories. I can get behind it, and that's why I would be on that side of the fence at times.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I really hope none of that came off as like, gosh, dismissive or negative. I'm like I said, I share D&D stories all the time. This is a podcast that is a large amount D&D stories, mine and other people's. So
you heard it here, folks. Gabe hates you.
See, if I was asking this question, I would not have used the word hate.
Sure, yeah.
If I did use the word hate, I would put some sort of like a modifier before that, like I kind of hate,
right,
or sometimes hate.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's a bit too negative,
right? Yeah,
for me.
Yeah, we're not trying to stop anyone from having a good time.
Sure. And I apologize if that comes off that way. I don't mean it that way.
Yeah.
If you enjoy your game, awesome. You keep on enjoying your game. Tell me about how you enjoy your game.
Yeah.
But certain things I have less interest in.
Yeah, there are certain aspects to a D&D story that aren't necessary.
Yeah.
Like, or that aren't, that's not the fun part.
Sure.
To be told.
Sure.
That could have been the fun part in the game, but it's not, but it's not as exciting in story format, I guess.
Yeah. Like if you went to a concert, what would you tell, if you wanted to tell somebody about this concert you went to? It wouldn't be the same because they weren't there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, yeah, you gotta, like, it's, you could say, like, oh, the music was so great. It was like, oh, okay, well, cool. Like, great. I'm glad you enjoyed it, but I didn't get to hear the music because I wasn't invited.
Right.
Okay, our next question comes from Eccentric Owl on Reddit, and they ask, what are your favorite physical props that you've used?
Yeah. Well, I've mentioned a few on the show before, but do you have any props that you have used?
Well, most of the props I can think of were from you.
Okay. That's fine.
Gabe likes to use props, or at the very least, he likes to use like handouts and things like that.
Yeah,
so that's a big thing.
I will say I don't use them often,
right?
Because it is a lot of work. But the few times that I have, I love them.
Yeah.
There was when 5th edition first came out, I started running a 5th edition game for you, for Chris.
Dang.
For my brother, not the brother that made the Mountain Witch, but my other brother, my brother Ted. And then Zave was in that campaign as well. And then also Tom and Mary from hollandspiel.com. Yeah. You may have heard of them before.
Yeah, that's when I first met them. Yeah.
Oh, that was the first time you met them, really?
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh, okay.
Pretty sure.
So they were there, and I think that might have been everybody. Oh, and Dave. Dave was part of the campaign for a little while.
Yeah.
At the very beginning. In that campaign, the very first session, I introduced the idea of quest day to everybody. So you guys were going to a tavern and joining quests and whatnot. And so I had one tavern in mind that I wanted you guys to meet at that I made up. And so I made flyers for that tavern.
Yeah, I think I still have mine.
There you go. I think I have a copy of. I made two different flyers for the same tavern. Oh, actually.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure I have a copy of each one. And it was, it was a little thing. I spent maybe like an hour getting it ready, but I think I really like it. I wish the campaign had gone on longer, but I loved the idea that you guys had a physical representation of something that happened in the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So the one I'm thinking of, this was back in 3.5. There was like an adventure that was like this, like, it's like a contest of champions sort of thing.
Challenge of Champions.
Challenge of Champions. And so like there are these different challenges. So it'd be like some sort of puzzle or something like that. And like one of them involved magical boots.
Yes.
And so you had to figure out, you had to like match the boots and then figure out like the command word to activate them and to figure out like what they did and that sort of thing. So like in order to make it a little bit more complicated and fun, Gabe had made these paper bags.
Yep, just got a bunch of paper bags from the grocery store.
Yeah, and so and he marked them depending on which boot they were, and so we had to physically put on these paper bags over our feet and then speak the command words.
Yeah.
And so we had to try so many different combinations to find the ones that were going to help us like get. I think it was like you had to find like the one of like striding and springing or something to get
something like that.
thing.
Yeah,
can't quite remember, but I just remember like having like putting paper bags over my feet and like saying words and like there were. I think one of the words was like one of the problems we were having was that like it was upside down or something.
Yeah. So, mind if I give a bit more background?
Sure.
So I feel like we've mentioned this on the podcast before, but the Challenge of Champions was a series of adventures that came out in Dungeon Magazine. I want to say there was like 3 or 4 of them over a few years, and it was an adventure that in theory you could play whether you were 20th level or 1st level. In theory, I think at 20th level you probably had a lot of options to trivialize a lot of these encounters, but they were puzzles rather than like combat.
Right.
Rather than just skill checks, you had to use your brain. There were ways that you could also use skill checks. And if you had spells or class abilities or whatever that let you do certain things, you could use those to your advantage. But in general, it was supposed to be like the players have to use their brains.
Right.
And so it definitely was a different type of encounter than most people are used to. And then there would be like 10 different rounds. Each round you had a time limit on. And then it wasn't just your group. It was also, there were like a bunch of other parties of adventurers. And then you were racing basically. So like after each encounter, the DM would keep track of how much time you had left. And then whichever team at the end had the most time got like a benefit in the last round or something like that. And so, anyway, there was an element of time. So you couldn't take your time. You had to be quick. And then a lot of these puzzles involved physical props.
Yeah.
In this case, the puzzle was that you needed boots of striding and springing or flying or something to cross this pit. And whoops, somebody mixed up all the boots. And so there was just a big pile of identical looking boots. Some of them were left boots. Some of them were right boots. You were given a slip of paper with the command word on it.
Right.
You had to put on a right boot, put on a left boot, say the command word. If that didn't work, take them off or take off one of them and put on another one, so on. But then there was an extra added twist where the players would eventually realize after trying every combination that the command word could be flipped over and it was a different word upside down.
Right, yeah.
So then they had to go through the whole thing again.
So try everything on again.
Yeah, so for that one I used just ordinary paper grocery bags.
Yeah.
I think that one was a lot of fun.
That was good.
I think there was another one where the players were given like there were several potions, but they were each marked something different. I think like they each had like a little jumble of letters, and then I think part of the puzzle was you were supposed to like put them all next to each other, and then it like spelled something out or something. I don't remember, but I had a whole bunch of little tiny glass bottles, and so I put the little labels on each of those. There was one where the players had to, in the dungeon, they had to like climb up and reach into this hole and pull out like a block with some symbols on it. And then I printed out on cardboard and I had taped a printout onto it. And so you had these little blocks in your hand, and then you'd have to put them next to each other and try to, if you held them a certain way, the symbols would make out a word. And so you would say that word and it would like open a door or something. So I loved those adventures. Number one, because it was a fun change from a regular adventure.
Right.
And number two, because I loved making all these props. Like it's just So much fun. I love that sort of thing. There's one challenge. It's not prop related. But there was one challenge where the party, they were each on a different balcony and they had to like get to one another, but they had to coordinate their actions. And there was in the room with them below the balconies was a gibbering mouther, which is a monster that if you hear it, you go insane.
Right.
And so the entire puzzle, they couldn't talk to each other. They had to have earmuffs on so they couldn't hear anything.
Right.
And so the whole thing had to be done without the players communicating.
Right.
Which that definitely makes it really hard, but hey, if that's part of the adventure.
Right. That's pretty fun. That's a good one.
Yeah. So those are really the main props that I've used personally.
Yeah. I mean, more like aesthetic props, or I think you light some candles or something at the D&D table, or if there's like an item of importance to like
oh yeah,
maybe when the adventurers come to actually find the Lich's phylactery, but they need to find a way to destroy it. You give them a little
box or something. Yeah,
you give them this item that they that you have at the table, so they can like actually feel it and hold it, and like they could be like, all right, well, we got to find a way to destroy this thing, and then like so having some sort of visual representation of something so central to the plot or to the adventure, that can have a real impact. So like having something tangible to represent that, something so powerful, can make the experience that much better.
Yeah, I've toyed with the idea of giving a player some sort of like really complicated puzzle box.
Okay,
giving the player one and saying your character finds this box. If you can ever get this open, then that means your character got it open too, and there is something inside that your character will get. Because there was a campaign, I think it was when I was playing as Saythorn, I found a puzzle box in game, and the DM would occasionally have me like make some sort of like a decipher script check, I think it was, to try and open it. And I never did, and I never found out what was inside of it. And so like, I don't know, I maybe I could have prompted the DM for more checks. Maybe. I don't know. But if there was like a physical thing, I could have been working on that like while I was at school or while I was at work or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
So I think that would be a neat thing if you can give the player something that they can take home with them.
If you could do my taxes, I'll give your character a really nice magical item.
Oh man, Jeff. You I think I might cut that out of the episode so I can use that. No, that's pretty good. Yeah, so I want to say I played with somebody who like made either a shield or a sword or something that his character had, but I'm blanking on who it might have been.
Yeah. So like basically just cosplaying your character and using
pretty much. I mean, I have been vocal about that sort of thing being a bit nerdier than I'm willing to go. I think that's a bit of hyperbole. I think that if you are that excited about playing your character, all the power to you. I don't mean to disparage that.
Yeah.
I wish I was able to go out of my comfort zone like that sometimes. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, I feel like I've played with somebody who made some sort of a prop that their character would have, but maybe it was a really long time ago and I'm blanking on what it was.
Like, maybe there's some sort of like quirk or something your character has and it has to do with an item. As long as you don't annoy the other players with it, like that can be a neat thing to have with you.
Yeah.
Or just like if you're trying to think, like if your character is like walks with a cane or something, maybe you have like a cane with you and you can like tap it, tap it every once in a while or something like that, to kind of make like a, if your character's trying to get at somebody's attention, you can like, tap somebody on the cane, as long as you're not like wailing somebody with it or like, tap it, like banging on the table constantly.
Sure. Yeah, so I really like physical props. I haven't used them as much as I feel I should, but the times that I have used them, I've really, really, really noticed that it made an increase in the enjoyment of the game.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think that'll do it for our normal questions today. Before we close out, though, before we go to the funeral pyre, I want to bring up our social media question.
Okay.
Now, if it has not been obvious yet, I kind of goofed the last couple weeks. I got twisted around on which question we were doing, and then the timey-wiminess, and long story short, the last couple weeks have been kind of a mess. But
sure.
So 2 weeks ago, and then last week also the question that we talked about was, have you ever gotten into interactive fiction, such as like games like Zork?
Oh, yeah.
And text adventures, that sort of thing. So I had forgotten to post that on social media. I accidentally posted the following week's question. Anyway, we only got a couple of responses to it anyway. But on Facebook, Sean M. said, Zork was fun. He said in Black Ops 1, you could escape the chair in the main menu and play it on a computer in that room as an Easter egg.
Oh, okay.
Which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
I mentioned in one of the Fallout games, Fallout 3, you can play Grognak the Barbarian or something like that.
Right, yeah. Is it like a text adventure on your Pip-Boy or something?
Well, it wasn't on your Pip-Boy. It was on a terminal.
Yeah.
I think in later games, they did put games into your Pip-Boy.
Right, yeah. And I think, Fallout 4, they start, like, if you found a game on a terminal, you could basically take it out of the terminal and put it into your Pip-Boy so you can play it at any time.
That's really cool. But then Sean also says, and this is sort of getting away from the text adventures, but whatever. I goofed up, so I'm not going to criticize anybody else for going outside of the question. But he says, Myst was phenomenal. Not quite a text adventure, but, similar.
Yeah.
I could see the inspiration in Myst.
Yeah. Myst was a fun one.
Yeah, so Myst was phenomenal. Lands of Lore, Thrones of Chaos with Sir Patrick Stewart.
Ooh.
And then there was the challenging Robinson's Requiem. I haven't heard of any of these except Myst. And I can't forget Maniac Mansion, which might be a bit less typical fiction interaction.
Oh.
Jeff really likes Maniac Mansion.
I love Maniac Mansion.
Never really played it, but I do love point-and-click adventure games.
Maniac Mansion, as far as I understand it, was had the first video game cutscene.
You might be right.
I'm pretty sure that's the case.
I feel like I've heard that before.
Yeah. Maybe from me.
Yeah. And then just one last thing. Not says, I'm sure there's more from my Commodore 64 days. Go 64.
Yeah.
So yeah, the old computer games did have a lot of games like this because they were not graphically intensive. So, you didn't, you didn't have to have a powerful computer to run them.
It was more theater of the mind.
Exactly. And then on one more response on Twitter, Treant Monk, which is at Chris Honkala. I hope I pronounced that correct. Said, when I was young, I loved the choose your own adventure books. So now, Garen, I think it was, said, he enjoyed those. I think those are really cool. Again, that's not really what I meant, but whatever. It adds to the conversation, and that's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, choose your own adventure books were awesome. I
Yes.
think those were a lot of fun. I still have several. So now that brings us to today's question. And so just again, a reminder, if this question in theory should have been posted on social media a couple days ago. So I don't know. You figure it out. Well, someday
keep
we'll
an eye
get
on our social media. Just,
there you go.
Just
there
stay involved, and we appreciate it.
Yes.
We just want it to be fun.
Sure. So this question is a little different. This is a different format of question.
Okay.
Jeff, you come across a locked door. What is your preferred method of opening it? I can give you some examples of what I mean.
Well, yeah, I know. Yeah, I understood the question. All right, I'm gonna answer it in the perspective of the character I'm currently playing, which is Myrtle. She's an old lady.
Sure.
She's gonna knock on it and just say hello.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, which some party members might be like, oh, dang it, like you don't just knock on a locked door in a dungeon or something. It could be an enemy on the other side, but like. In most cases, that's going to get the door to get open. Like, it's going to open.
Sure.
We might not like what's on the other side.
Absolutely.
But it's going to open.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I would say, in general, either pick the lock or go look for the key.
Sure, yeah.
I think bashing down a door is the least interesting way of getting through a locked door.
I mean, like, it's classic. It is a classic D&D. That is like the barbarian, like, in the group is just like, stand aside, I'll take care of this. Boom, know, which it's fun. But yeah, it's I think that's the classic way. That's not necessarily like the I don't know, the most interesting way.
Sure. Yeah. So if anybody comes up with any other cool solutions to an obstacle like this, we'll read them next episode.
Dig a hole under it. I don't know.
I guess. Yeah. So once again, you come across a locked door. What is your preferred method of opening it? So I think that'll do it for questions. So now, before we close out the episode, we're going to sit back. We're going to take a deep breath.
Excuse me.
We're going to toss another log onto the funeral pyre. So this story was actually submitted just a couple hours ago, just a couple hours before we recorded this. It was submitted by Collins on email.
Yeah.
And this story is titled The Ballad of Chimney Sweep Tom and Daniel. Chimney Sweep Tom, a child with 2 crippled legs who gets around on crutches when not selling papers.
Oh my goodness.
Or papes, as they call them in Newsies. And Daniel, a human farmer who was found wandering in the woods with an intelligence of 5, were exploring a dungeon with a rogue human and a rogue Modron fighter. Modrons, of course, being the like robotic beings from Mechanus.
Yeah, the little clockwork
part of
guys.
like a hive mind, and this one apparently broke apart, similar to a character in
Voyager.
Planescape. What? Voyager?
Star Trek Voyager.
Oh, I guess. Okay, good pull there. I was going to say Planescape Torment.
Sure.
Because that is actually a Modron, but Borg are close enough.
Cool.
Close enough. Upon triggering a poison trap, Daniel fell unconscious. The Modron, whose name was Portcullis, I think that's a good name.
Yeah, I like that.
Extended his hose attachment into Daniel's mouth to pump him full of clean-ish air.
Oh, goodness.
The Modron rolled a 1 on basic medicine check and exploded Daniel's lungs.
Oh, he's dig-dugged. He got dig-dugged.
He did get dig-dugged. Oh, snap. Okay, well, the story's not over yet. In a later room of the dungeon, Chimney Sweep Tom was knocked unconscious by a skeleton. The rogue checked his vitals and saw that he was alive. He then told the party that Tom had actually died and convinced them both of that, and they couldn't afford to take his body with them. Natural 20s are great. The party left his unconscious body there to be later hacked to pieces by another wandering skeleton.
Oh, no.
And then Collins did give a follow-up email as well saying, small edit, after fact-checking the story, the rogue was not a rogue. He was actually a Pact of the Blade warlock. His name was Joshua. And leaving Tom to his death was actually commanded by his patron.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah.
Oh, my.
Yeah. So, so then the epitaph from Collins reads as follows. Rest in peace, Chimney Sweep Tom and Daniel, you useless bastards. Clink.
Oh, no.
Now, I just want to say, there are a couple parts of this story that are a natural 1 and a natural 20, but that's not what the story is about.
Sure.
The story is about the characters doing stupid things, like the Modron trying to put a hose down his throat and fill his lungs.
Yeah, like the fact that it was a natural 1 is almost not important. That's not important.
Exactly.
The important part was what?
Yeah, and then the rogue / warlock basically killed the character and then lied to the rest of the party.
Yeah,
that is an interesting story right there. Anyway, I think that'll do it for today's episode.
Yep.
So, to submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragons Hoard, or stories for the funeral pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, links to media mentioned on the show, and running lists of questions and magic items, go to interpartyconflict.com. Join the discussion on social media. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict, our subreddit at reddit.com/r/interpartyconflict, or on Twitter @InPartyConflict for our weekly social media questions. Your answers might end up on the show.
Ooh.
Find us on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, anywhere you download podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend. If you'd like to support the show, check out the rewards at patreon.com/interpartyconflict. There's a few different tiers, so anything you can spare, even $1 a month, would go towards making the show better, and you'll get bonus content for it. Jeff, tell me about FriendQuest.
FriendQuest is our YouTube channel where you can watch us play video games and possibly see us play arcade games pretty soon.
Yes, I'm hoping to figure out details for that by the end of the month.
Sure.
So maybe something next month, maybe a little after. We'll see.
Yeah. So keep your ear out for that.
Yes. And speaking of arcade games, if you'd like to submit some of your childhood memories of going to the arcade, either write them to us in an email or record it yourself and send it to me at arcadememoriespodcast@gmail.com. Now, by the time this episode goes out, I might have the first episode of the Arcade Memories podcast done. I might. Maybe not.
Okay.
But if not by the time this episode goes out, then definitely in the week after. Sure. Trying to really Really trying hard to get that done this month.
Yeah.
And then there might be additional episodes if we get additional submissions.
Yeah.
It might be the only episode. Either one is fine with me.
Right.
If you listen to it and you want to submit some stuff, go for it. You can also head over to bit.ly/InterPartyConflict and take a short survey about our show. What you like, what you don't like, etc. And just for taking it, you'll get 2 free printable board games courtesy of Mary and Tom over at hollandspiel.com. And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hackers RPG. So Jeff, until next time,
don't get dig-dugged.
Good advice.